Welcome to Phantom Zone, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer. Then we put them on trial, and should they be found guilty for their crimes against humanity, we'll launch them far, far into the deep, deep recesses of space. A Phantom Zone, if you will. I'm your host, Adrian Torres, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Scott Daly. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good, Adrian. I have a question for you, though.
Absolutely.
Where the hell do you find these movies?
I know. I don't see. I wanted to try something different and make it simple. Earlier today, I did tell everybody that we were off to a great start. 2 weeks into the new year, 2 episodes recorded, and then I remembered, oh crud, we are not going to be able to record next week.
Yeah,
because
I'm sorry,
Scott. What did you do to mess us up?
I'm getting married. I'm sorry. She won't let me record an episode on our honeymoon. I don't know why.
That's devastating. So I wanted to try to find some that would be easy to watch anywhere. The process ended up being a little bit more laborious than I would have liked. I'm glad that we don't have any sponsors for the show, and I'm glad that these people aren't a sponsor, so they can't get mad at us. But this particular movie that we watched this week, which is not Heartbeeps, I am sorry, Heartbeep was not on this service, so it didn't fall into the parameters, so we're going to have to save that for another time. But we watched a movie using Vudu's Movies on Us service, which is you get to see a select movie that they have out of a couple hundred. Actually, they've got a really good selection of movies, and they've got some ads that play during it. When I say they've got some ads, it's basically 3 different ads they have to choose from, and they'll play 2 of them back to back every 22, 25 minutes. It works if you're using it on the desktop. It works if you're using it on your phone. But when it comes to a streaming device like Roku or Xbox or Apple TV or any of those, it's kind of hit or miss on if you can actually access the free play button.
See, I used it on my PS4 and had no problems. So I didn't realize
good
that.
For you.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching a TV show on or a movie on TBS or TNT or something. And that's about the level of commercials you get, which is not great, but it's free. I didn't have to pay to watch this movie.
Which is good.
And Vudu, if you're listening and you want to give us money to say more nice things about your service, please do.
I love Vudu personally. It's where I have all my movies stored, all my digital one. I've got over 400 movies on Vudu because they're accessible. They're really easy to use, and they've teamed up with Walmart. So if you buy most movies from Walmart nowadays, if it's DVD, Blu-ray, what have you, they usually come with a digital copy for Vudu. So it's nice in that regard. I got free credit a couple years back. I don't remember what it was for. Actually, just 2 weeks ago for Christmas, they had a little thing, an email that popped up and said, hey, click this and you could win 2, 3, 5, or up to $20 credit. And I clicked it being like, I'm going to get 2 because I never won anything and got $20 credit.
Nice.
And said, well, my laptop has a Blu-ray player in it. They've got a thing that if I convert X amount of discs, they give you half off. So I took some older movies that I would want to have anywhere I go, and was able to get them in high quality. So it works out there. Just the free part, of course, isn't the best, but if it's free,
man, Adrian, this has been the best Vudu advertisement ever. You would almost think we're getting money from them. No,
I wish. They can do that.
What movie are we doing today? What are we talking about?
Well, that's why I wanted to talk so positively about Vudu for a minute, because
we're going to go negative.
We're going to go negative the whole time on the movie that we watched on there. We saw a film called Hunk. Just Hunk. Hunk. That's it. From 1987. And the movie is as simple as the title. It's a terrible film. Well, you've come to expect that on here, but I wanted to dive and find a movie that I'd never heard of. And I've seen way too many films. Scott's seen way too many films. There's plenty of films that we've heard of, even if we haven't viewed them yet. This was a movie that I knew absolutely nothing about. I saw it on the service. I saw that it had like 1.5 stars on it. I did a little research into the movie. It was even worse sounding than I could possibly have had imagined, and that's when I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going off the beaten path because this movie's available for everybody to see, and it's terrible. And it is really, really terrible.
Yeah, so for those listening at home, every once in a while, Adrian will come to me and say, Scott, do you have an idea for what movie you want to talk about on Phantom Zone? And I always, like, scratch my head for a little bit and go, like, I don't know, like, Face Off or something? And then Adrian just disappears for a little while and comes back with these movies that I had no idea existed. I've never heard of before. I legitimately don't know how you find these things. Like, it's a gift that you have.
That's me. To quote Al Pacino in Heat, you gotta sift through the detritus. Let's
talk about this movie.
It's so weird because the opening shot of the movie starts in media res because, you know, that always works well when you're a 1980s sex comedy that doesn't have the sex and doesn't have the comedy. But we start with a guy's back and he's in bed and he's writhing. But the music that they're playing is out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's slow and pulsating. And right as it gets up to the guy and just as he wakes up, it goes into a full-on rock song. Classic
80s rock. Yeah.
And it's real men or real dudes or something like that. It's a horrible song. It lets you know that right off the bat, this is going to be terrible.
I want to see if we can find it because I'd love to play some at the end of the episode.
Sure, absolutely. I think there's only like 3 or 4 songs, and this song that starts off the movie is in the film at least 5 times because it backs one of the parties that the main character throws later on. It's like, why is that the song that you're playing? If things weren't frightening enough with that disconnect between the horror score and the rock song, you also see that he has a fucking shower outside.
Of course he does.
Just outside. He's got a shower, and then he's got a mirror, and he's got a station for everything that would be in the bathroom. He just doesn't have a toilet outside. I guess because the ocean is less than 5 feet away, so he could just jog in and take a dump there if he needed.
He's inside his beach house very few times in this movie. Most everything occurs outside, including showering and everything that would normally be in a bathroom.
Or the bedroom that looks like they converted an office into a bedroom.
Well, they probably did.
So they put up some cardboard, painted it black, and had the bottom of a bunk bed set, basically.
The interesting part to me is this. I mean, like, this whole opening scene is like so super like focused on every aspect of this dude's body. Like, the camera is just drinking it all up, which is, I mean, like, it's a refreshing role reversal on the usual male gaze that we see in movies. But my favorite shot is when he goes to button up his jeans and you just see a mess of pubic hair. I'm like, we're already 3 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing.
Well, for a movie that for the 80s that purports again to be a sex comedy, one of the big staples of that time was nudity. You don't get any nudity in this movie. None. You get more male nudity than any female. There's not even like simulated. You don't even have like hand bra nudity for women in this film.
Yeah, this is a PG movie. Like,
yeah.
What was the target audience here?
People who were passed out and had like HBO or Cinemax on at 2:00 in the morning, but in Utah, so very chaste HBO. Um, this opening that he's describing, that Scott mentioned, has the guy going through just basic everyday life, walking around, driving in a car. But while he's doing these things, all the women are turning and staring at him.
Well, because he's a hunk.
They're dropping boxes. There's the one guy whose wife stops and stares at him because the husband's dressed entirely in sweatpants, and then grabs her and yanks her off like he's going to beat her in the next room, which seemed really, really odd nowadays to watch it be like that guy's totally an abuser and he just beat the shit out of his wife for staring at Hunk. That's so happy. But it's the most 80s sitcom opening to a film that I've ever seen. Like, you imagine things like the opening to Perfect Strangers or Step by Step or Full House. That's the level that they're operating on in this movie. They just need a laugh track.
Yeah.
So Hunk, which is literally the name of our character, not just of the movie. It's our lead's name, Hunk.
Adrian,
Hunk Golden.
The character names in this movie are incredible. Like, they're all over the place.
So he literally says, because he goes into a psychologist, not psychiatrist, psychologist's office, and says, "You can call me Hunk for now."
For now.
Because he's got a very important story that he wants to tell, because he's really Bradley Brinkman, who he says is inside of him, and that this hunk exterior is not really who he was, and time is running out for him. The first thing I want to point out about this is he is Bradley Brinkman, but in this form, he is called Hunk. Now, what's the interesting dichotomy here, Scott?
I don't know. What?
Come on, nerd out here for a second.
I don't know if I'm going to get there.
Okay. Bradley Brinkman, Hunk. Bruce Banner, Hulk.
Oh, damn it. That's so stupid. I'm so angry now.
It's what the movie's going for. They're not saying it.
You're absolutely
but they made sure, because it's Bradley Brinkman. They went for BB, and then the crazy roided out version is Hunk. So they went there. They have that connection, but it's not done in a way for like any actual joke. It's just really stupid and offhand that you can pay attention to it. But Bradley Brinkman is a self-described computer hack.
So can we go back for a second here? Because the thing I wanted to talk about in this first psychologist scene is the lighting. Because for an inexplicable reason, we are not showing Hunk's face at this point in the movie yet. So
it's because it's ADR'd. Because I looked, because you can see it. Maybe my TV screen was up a little bit, but when he has the line about that he was a computer hack, and when he's saying everything before it transitions into the next scene, he's just standing there motionless, not saying any of it. His mouth's not moving. They ADR'd him when he should be talking. He was talking like 10 seconds earlier before he went over to the chair and started describing what was going on, and then they just inexplicably start to ADR it.
Yeah, but like, it's not even just that, because like when he eventually does the transformation into Hunk, they play his face as a reveal. Like, the scene starts off where you're only seeing him from behind, and then like he turns around and you finally get to see his full face. But it's meaningless to us. So the decision like to light his face so darkly that you can't see it it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, this whole introduction doesn't make any sense and doesn't matter. Yeah. But
I was going to say your insistence that it was a decision seems a little too kind, because I'm not sure that much thought went into anything on the film.
Here's what I'm going to say about this movie, though. It's trying to do things, and I think like this is a movie that has an actual message behind it. I don't think it executes on it very well. It's not a very funny movie, but like, there are things that this movie is saying, but then there are parts like this which are completely unnecessary. and I don't understand why they did them. And that's basically the whole first 20 minutes of this film.
Yes. Which deals with we learn about Bradley Brinkman basically. Bradley Brinkman is your classic, I guess, nerd. You don't really know a lot about if he is a nerd or not. He looks nerd-y for the 1980s.
But it felt like they could have, like 80s nerd, you think, just throw some glasses on him. Like, why didn't they want to go full stereotype here? It's interesting.
I think the computer part was what they went into. The computer side of things. And then he mentions that his girlfriend broke up with him for an aerobics instructor, which is another classic. Nerd gets left for this thing. But he mentions that he's a big daydreamer. And when he daydreams, he always daydreams that he is a more attractive man who's got more confidence, who's easier to talk to with women. And he says, the kind of guy who looks great in bikini briefs when the crack rides up into the bum. That's the level we're working with here. That's the classic writing.
The dialogue in this movie is terrible. And you kind of feel bad for the actors because I think in scenes they are legitimately doing the best they can with the dialogue, but it's really stilted. It's really unnatural. And that's a perfect example of it. It's just like, no one would ever talk like that.
Well, no one would do basically anything that's done in this film. And you were mentioning that you love the names in this film. And Bradley, while he's daydreaming, is woken out of his state by his boss, whose name is Konstantin Konstantopoulos.
I can't, this, I guess, is supposed to be like a Greek stereotype. I mean, they even have, his thing that he says is related to, a grape leaf something, or I don't remember what he actually says, but...
yeah, that if Bradley doesn't get his act together, he's going to end up pulling off grape leaves at a Greek restaurant for the rest of his life.
So this character is completely unnecessary to the story at all. I feel like the author just had some Greek jokes that they wanted to write, so they added this boss character who's pointless.
Yes.
But I love his name, Konstantin Konstantopoulos.
And the company that he runs writes computer programs for the world, I guess. we're not told, but Bradley needs to write a computer program that's going to be a success because the last couple that he's written have just been giant duds. And as he's being talked to and told that he's kind of on the chopping block, everyone else in the office starts slowly gathering around Bradley to listen in on the conversation for no reason. I guess it's supposed to be funny, but it doesn't add up to anything.
They all get to laugh at him when he says why his girlfriend left him.
Because he's not the type of guy he wasn't willing to have sex in leotards while counting.
But you know who would? An aerobics instructor.
There you go. Problem solved.
Jokes.
So Bradley sits at his computer, stays late after work, and decides, you know what? I have no idea what type of computer program I'm going to write, so I'm just going to write into the computer, I'd sell my soul for a good computer program. And all of a sudden, he says, some kind of digital vulture appeared on my screen, which literally happens, and then all the computers turn on and start writing the Yuppie program.
So one of the big problems with this film is, first of all, this whole intro doesn't matter, but he's a computer programmer, but none of his programs are actually computer programs. No. He's also programming at a mainframe, and this came out in 87, I think.
Yes.
They had personal computers by that point. I mean, I know most businesses still used mainframe computing, but you would write code on your personal computer. You wouldn't sit in front of a giant room-sized mainframe and code. And you also wouldn't write a program that just apparently seems to be like a self-help guide Like, there's nothing computer related. Like, this is clearly written by someone who doesn't know what computer programming is.
Well, because in like a couple scenes later, somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I love that thing. I read it all the time." And it's like, what? That's not how computer programs work. You don't sit there and read them.
But it sold 50,000 units or something.
It sold 50,000 units in the first 6 days. Is what he said. I don't know what it does in the long run. We never find out.
But what it does is get him a vacation, sort of.
Well, he's handed a check and he's told, "Hey, you get the summer off. Here's a bonus check. Go wherever you want, but you have to write a new computer program by Labor Day. Or sorry, by the day after Labor Day." Because that's the rule that everyone sets up in this damn film is the day after Labor Day. Not on Labor Day, because we're going to let you have that day off.
Well, yeah, you got to.
We're not going to have it set, the day before Labor Day. Well, I guess like 3 days before that Friday so that you can enjoy the weekend. No, we're going to have you have to fret and work all weekend, but you get to turn it in the day after Labor Day.
So here's this entire scene. The entire point of this scene is to set up that Bradley Brinkman is going to a beachside resort for summer. To
sea spray.
Yeah, to apparently learn about yuppies since he just wrote a program about them, which doesn't make any sense because that program's done. Why would we need to learn more about them? But it's immaterial.
Well, I think he went there because he wanted to try to live a better life, to blend in. But he spends the money on renting out the cheapest place he can on the island, which is a house that's right on the water, but was supposedly a boat captain's dream house that he was building so that he could take out onto the water. But the house is completely landlocked. And it's not in the shape of a ship or anything like that. But they make sure to mention that he never finished the house that he wanted to live in and take out to sea.
Mm-hmm. So, he the point, like, I guess we should just be upfront. This is a movie. This is a Faustian tale of selling your soul to the devil,
yes.
And the things that arise from that. The problem is, because of the intro, he's already sold his soul. Like, he typed into a computer program, I would sell my soul for a pop.
Yeah, but you can't say that he didn't sign any contract or anything like that.
I don't care.
Did it of its
that would be
of its own. No, he said he would. He didn't say I will sell. Or it's all about the wording. He could say anything he wants, but he doesn't offer up anything. He said, "I would sell my soul for this." And as the movie goes to great pains later on, and throughout it, to have binding legal arbitration with the devil, that they don't jump on that aspect to it, since he said, "I would," because they're basically doing it out of their own free will. But yeah, it's basically a sitcom TV show by way of Bedazzled or The Devil vs. Daniel Webster, that type of thing. But they have all these weird stereotypes for all these characters, but they're not really trying at all, because once he gets to the crappy house and he's taking a look at it, we're introduced to Chachka, who is the, I guess, Jewish spinster of the movie without being a spinster, and instead she's just weird because she comes in and is talking to him. You don't really know her connection to anything except for that she lives on this island. She says that she likes to collect things and little knickknacks and tchotchkes. That's how she got her name. But she's really just a fucking kleptomaniac.
She's just there to steal shit, and she's happens
looking
to
at
be
his
home.
stuff. Exactly. And she mentions that she doesn't do anything with the stuff that she collects, so she's a klepto hoarder. we never see the inside of her house, but I can only imagine how frightening that place is. We see her car later on in the movie, which is decorated with a whole bunch of tchotchkes, and it's probably one of the most frightening creations since the river horse of the last movie we watched.
So here's the weird part about Tchotchke to me, besides her whole character. Her introduction, I don't know if you noticed this, but her introduction, and this is the only time in the movie this happens, we go point of view on Bradley Brinkman, and Tchotchke is looking directly into the lens as she's introducing herself to him. And I have no idea why we did this. It's creepy as hell. And it's the only time it happens in the movie. Like, it feels like, you know, you're playing a video game and it cuts to like a cutscene where it'll cut to point of view, and then the introduction will happen, and then it'll stop and load back the rest of the normal game engine. That's what it feels like. It feels like for just 15 seconds, we just cut to a completely different movie. It's doing something completely different. It's so unnerving and weird.
It's enough to put the fear of Tchotchke in.
But Tchotchke's a pointless character. Like,
well, Tchotchke seems like she's going to be the nice buddy throughout the film.
Right.
And Tchotchke is kind of emblematic of everything that's wrong with the movie, or that the movie doesn't get. Because she seems nice, she seems sweet, and she's there for Bradley at a couple different points. She brings him in to meet everybody that she thinks is important on the island.
4 people.
Yeah, the 4 people. She gives her whole life story to him. She's also apparently fucking ageless, because she mentions that they left New York in the 50s.
Yeah.
But then is talking about the beach and how it grew in the 60s and 70s, and now we're in the 80s. But she looks like she's in her like mid to late 30s. So I don't know. But then you don't know where Tchotchke comes from. She's taking all these collectibles and knickknacks, but you never see her home. You see her car, which is like a 1930s, 1940s car that's got all the tchotchkes on it. You're never told if she has money, if she comes from money. So she could just be some crazy person who walks up and down the beach and people are just letting wander into their lives.
Yeah, it's funny because as much as the other guys give shit to Bradley Brinkman about like how he's not dressed like he has money, they seem to completely tolerate Tchotchke, and like she hangs out with them constantly on their daily Trivial Pursuit on the beach games.
Ivor Straczynski, right?
Jesus. So
no, that's not the correct response, Scott. You're supposed to say Igor Stravinsky. Wrong.
I'm sorry. I don't have the movie memorized. But
yeah, I saw it once, and there was enough to know that was the classic tat-a-tat of the movie.
Did you see who owned the beach in the 70s? The name of the person? It was Mahatma Maharaji. Again with the alliteration.
It's wonderful.
The racially insensitive alliteration.
The yuppies' names are as follows. Coaster Royce, Alexis Cash, Skeet Mecklenburger, and Laurel Springs.
Best names ever. Skeet.
Laurel gets like the most normal sounding name.
I don't remember which is Laurel the blonde?
Yeah, she's the blonde.
The cheerleader?
The super southern cheerleader nurse.
So Skeet Mecklenburger is the washed up football player, I believe.
Skeet Mecklenburger, his name kind of sounds like the famous MST3K episode of Space Mutiny, where they list off like the 35 different names that include like roll fizzle beef. It's just terrible.
Yeah, these guys are all awful. But they're also
Skeet loves V-ball though.
V-ball. They never. I think
V-ball.
The only person that calls it volleyball is Brinkman. Once. Everyone else says, "You know how to play some V-ball?
You know the rules of V-ball?"
My favorite part about the volleyball scene, or at least this volleyball scene, is it's clear that the different camera setups were shot at different times of the day. Because they cut back to one, and it's much lighter than it is at the other. Like one, it looks like it's about sunset. And they just didn't give a shit. Just didn't care.
for as short as that volleyball scene is, I guess the second volleyball scene is really short, but it's more awkward than the one in Top Gun.
It's like they were trying to do the Top Gun one, but didn't know how to shoot movies.
Yes. The tone of the film is just so weird because it's not necessarily over the top because it feels like a regular film for the majority of it. It just has sitcomish / cartoonish situations embedded into it. Because think Better Off Dead / One Crazy Summer minus all the humor.
Yeah. See, I don't
because that's what they're trying to go for at points, but it doesn't land because you don't have any through line. I mean, the first 30-40 minutes of the movie are just kind of meandering because it's just set up with him, on the beach and walking around, and he at two different times he sees this woman on the beach. When he's with Chachka, he sees this woman walking up from the water that he thinks is the most beautiful woman, except for no one else is seeing the woman. And you don't know if it's supposed to be a mirage or what at first.
She's nipping hard in that swimsuit, which is probably very intentional.
Which is the closest thing you have to any actual nudity.
Gotta make a PG sex comedy for some reason.
I guess it's 87. That's the difference, because you had plenty of movies that were PG for years that still had nudity in the comedies. I don't think we have any children who are below 13 that are listening out there, but I remember as a young child seeing Airplane and being like, wait, what? There's boobs in Airplane? This movie's PG. But there's none of that in here. Like it's very censored in a way. Like when you're watching the movie, it feels like there should be an unrated cut or a harder cut of this movie, but no, they go for that weird line of trying to be child friendly.
I think it would have been better, like just embrace the sex comedy aspect of it and just make it like more lewd. And then they play into it at plenty of different times, but it's like those scenes don't exist. But he sees this mirage woman again when he goes to a party at this club, the Sandcastle,
and the Sandcastle, which is the place that everybody goes on the island. The lamest
fucking beach place I've ever seen.
Where they have the creepy woman who's dressed like a mermaid who just lays on the bar.
That was so weird. Was she in the first scene, or was it only in that one run? I didn't see her in the first scene.
She's in there. She's in there in the first time too. I didn't see her there. And it just seems like the oddest job. Like you've got a bar that's being half taken up by a woman that's dressed as a mermaid. She's not singing. She's not doing anything. Like all she does is just lay on there. Like she doesn't smack her gum or anything, but she's acting like a mannequin on top of the bar. But Bradley, our idiot hero or something like that, I don't even know, sees the girl, dances with her again, and there's no one else who's there, and he's like, oh, did you see her? Did you see where she went? And everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're kind of crazy. He goes home, and we cut to like 2 days later because he decides that he wants to throw an open house so that he can have people over and, try to become friends with everybody. Of course, no one ends up showing. Even Chachka
bails out on him.
Or says that she's not going to be able to make it, but because she's Chachka and she's Jewish and she's a little hefty, they make sure in the phone conversation to have her ask if there's going to be leftovers the next day.
Of course. 80s fat jokes, people.
They're classy. Out of nowhere, we end up getting O'Brien, who's the woman that he's been seeing all over the place, and she says that she is a demon and has had her evil eye on Bradley for quite some time because she wants him to have all his dreams, basically, and wants to help him have whatever he truly desires in life. And she offers that they can make him a hunk. And wouldn't you know it, they're happening to have a limited time offer, a trial package where he can try out the body of a hunk until Labor Day, day after Labor Day. And if he decides he wants to keep it, all he has to do is just sell his soul.
So, I mean, the devil's a very practical businessman with these. I mean, he's got trial periods. It's very nice.
Well, he doesn't exactly sign off on the trial periods.
Yeah, but he gives his employees like full autonomy to make their own deals and do whatever they want.
If they get to call him classy names like Dr. D.
So yeah, I mean,
which is officially what that's what the devil's credited in this movie as. In the opening credits, it has the actor's name, and then it says as Dr. D,
which is James Coco. I think this was his last movie. I think he died before this movie was actually released.
Yeah, he died during post-production. Yeah. And that's probably for the best, because in the movie he ends up coming off as basically a third-rate Zero Mostel.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to him yet. Like, that's the crazy part. Like this.
Well, he doesn't show up, because I have it written. He doesn't show up until minute 50 in the movie, and this is a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes long.
An hour and 40 minutes too long.
It's way too long. So she sets up the basic parameters, and she mentions a couple things that you think would come in later in the movie if it was a better film that never ever get mentioned again. Because she ends up wanting to be very, very serious about this business deal. She's got a briefcase that's got all the paperwork and everything. She's got her brand new patented hypodermic pen, in which she sticks into his thumb so that he's able to sign in blood. But before he goes over any of this, she's got basically demonic Miranda rights that she reads to. And she ends up, saying, if you happen to be possessed, you will be afforded an exorcism. If you can't pay for the exorcism, one will be provided for you.
Which, I mean, that's very nice of demons to do that for you.
Yeah. Well, but it even slightly becomes hinted at later in the movie where he says he feels that he's changing. And I was like, oh, okay. Clearly what's happening is because he's giving into his baser instinct, he's allowing a demon to overtake him. And that's part of the deal, is if he decides that he wants his old body back, nope, that this body that's going to be created is going to be inhabited by a demon to run amok on the earth. Nope. That's way too much thought for the movie.
Yep.
But because Bradley Brinkman is disappointed in his life and really wants to get the ladies, he ends up signing. He partly seems like he signs because he doesn't believe that what's actually happening is happening, because there's a chance that he might just be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. The movie plays it up. Even when he becomes Hunk, there's several times that the movie tries to go out of its way, both in the actual film and then things that are going on, to make him feel as if he's losing his mind.
Well, and the weird part about this, and I might be skipping ahead a little, but
it doesn't matter.
In most movies like this, like when the person first has the transformation, it's like a moment of celebration. It's like, yes, I got everything I wanted. There's like, maybe there's a montage where they're finally doing the things. And that happens in this movie, but it happens after the first part, which is him like freaking out and wanting to know what happened to his old body and doing all these things. And it's like, that doesn't really fit here. Like, yeah, like you should just like put you have to put the consequences of the decision you made after you're reaping the benefits of it. It's out of order and weird. And I think the reason is to shove in the whole psychologist visit, because that really feels out of place too. Because it's like he's having fun being Hunk Goldman, and then he goes to a shrink, and then he has more fun being Hunk. It doesn't. It's just so weird. The whole framing device of the movie is just so weird.
Exactly, because he ends up going through the transformation that night, which is done very weirdly.
It's so bad.
It's like
it's so bad.
Everything in close-ups. It's
think American Werewolf in London, but awful.
Yes, it was Rick Baker probably saw this and probably called up a studio and said, "See, that's what you could have gotten had you not gotten me." Because it's so bad. It's so cheap. Everything's plastic. It's just so sad. But of course, the first person who shows up after he's had the transformation is Chachka, and he's, instead of enjoying everything, he's trying to he's freaking out kind of, because he's not himself. The entire house has been completely redone. His wardrobe's been changed, and he's excited but also fearful of the fact that he's been turned into a new person. Chachka loves it. She's a huge fan. Doesn't care that Bradley's gone, because the only way that Hunk covers for it is by saying that Bradley's in the city for a family emergency, and that's enough to convince everybody. Oh yeah, that's totally fine.
Well, they didn't like him very much to begin with, so they don't mind that he's gone.
Well, Bradley's not exactly the most exciting character in the world.
No,
I mean, one of the first things that happens when he's turned into Hunk is he goes outside and he's checking out his body for a second, and he makes sure to open up his underwear and stares at his penis. And instead of, like in all the other movies, people are always like, "Oh yeah, I've been changed. That's exciting." And instead, he goes, "No, my best friend since the 7th grade is missing."
Which is funny because they make specific point in the transformation scene to show that he gets a much bigger dick. So why would this be upsetting to you?
We also learned that his dick is named Oscar.
Yes.
Absolutely no bearing on the plot whatsoever, but they want you to know that he's named his special friend.
And this is, I think, another problem of the film, and it's kind of a problem in casting, is that John Allen Nelson, who plays Hunk, is a much better actor than Steve Levitt, who plays Bradley. So you automatically like Hunk better, and not just because he's a better looking guy. It's because the actor is just doing a better job.
You feel sorry. Like, I genuinely felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because you could tell that as an actor, people probably put him into certain groups just because he was an attractive guy, but because he was kind of unknown, they wouldn't really give him a chance to do other roles, because he tries to push it so hard and he tries to be funny, but the material that he has to work with, there's no substance there whatsoever. So most of it, instead of it being funny, comes up as him acting manic. And again, that's not his fault. It's him trying to convey what text they have, but most of what's happening is diametrically opposed to what would naturally be free-flowing comedy. So he ends up meeting up with the group that treated Bradley like crap, of course, just so he can stick in their face, "Hey, look, your girlfriends think I'm really attractive. I'm better at V-ball than you. I can kick your ass." And we're explained in voiceover by O'Brien the transformation that she's given him. When he went through the transformation, she visited him as a ghost in the middle of the night,
dressed in white. Like, the imagery in this is a very strange film. Like, it doesn't add up. She's supposed to be a demon, and she comes in translucent ghost dressed in all white and waves her hands.
But she has no conversation with him. But then several minutes later, like I said, when he's on the beach, all of a sudden it cuts to a voiceover from her explaining the new body that he has, and she mentions how everything was proportionally done, like the thighs of Sylvester Stallone, the belly button of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the eyes, the pelvis of Elvis. Because the puns just never end in this movie. The eyes of Paul Newman.
Who'd she say he had the dick of? I can't remember. Damn it. I can't remember. Damn it. Oh well, it's funny.
But it's so stupid. And they intercut this with him and end up getting in a very short fight with Skeet Mecklenburger. And to which she ends up saying, "And to protect our evil investment, you're naturally a martial arts expert."
Of course.
There we go. If there's ever going to be any fight or anything in the rest of the movie, you don't have to worry about it. He can't get drunk because he has the liver, or twice the liver of a man who drinks 10 times the normal amount.
Who wouldn't want to get, like, I want to get drunk. Like, that sucks. Like, not get a hangover, sure, but, like, that sucks. I would be mad about that.
Yeah. But it goes on just to show up. They have a montage of him eating, for God's sake.
Yeah, because he can eat everything he wants. He has cavity-proof teeth.
Matter.
His teeth are self-cleaning.
Exactly.
He's the perfect person, basically.
And so he seems to be enjoying it, even though we're cutting back with him talking to the psychologist about how much he didn't enjoy his life. And so he goes to sleep. And then all of a sudden, he's visited by the devil, who is dressed like Attila the Hun. Because that works. He's dressed like Attila the Hun, but he's got a Roman slave girl that he's going to kill. And God, I can't remember what he says. But it's stupid. He's mixing time periods.
He said he's either going to kill her in Troy or turn her into a hula hoop.
In the 50s.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
But it's 50 minutes in, and we finally find out that the reason why the devil has shown up is because he likes Hunk, and Hunk is exactly the type of guy that he needs to bring about World War III. That's the only description we're given. Mm-hmm. We're not told what specifically it is about Hunk that he needs to bring about World War III, just that he's an attractive dude in the 80s who agreed to sell his soul. Because I'm thinking if it's about the manufacturing that was done to create Hunk, you've got O'Brien. O'Brien did this magic spell to give him this body. She can go take anybody and do it. She can make an army of people for this. But what's so special about Hunk that they need him?
It's meaningless and it's unnecessary. Like in every other Faust story, you have it's just the devil wants your soul, and that's it. The devil collects soul. The devil's evil. It wants to trick you into giving him your soul by offering you fun stuff, and that's all you need. Like they're trying to overcomplicate this plot, which is really when it's boiled down to is beauty is on the inside. I mean, that's the plot of this movie, kind of. But
that's the message of it. Yeah. But even that gets muddied. But okay, but with this part, they make it seem like a satanic pyramid scheme in a way, because they mention that if he ends up going through with it and decides that he wants to keep Hunk's body and sell his soul over, that he will end up, when he dies, which doesn't make sense because the body can never die. But once his time is done, he will end up becoming a satanic salesman. Basically, he'll become a demon who goes around doing the exact same thing that O'Brien did to him, because that's how you pay back your debt, is that you have to get at least one soul every 100 years.
Which, I mean, that's pretty lenient of a requirement.
Yeah. But while we're finding out about this, there's O'Brien's talking to Hunk as if she is in love with him. But we have no connection for this either. We've seen her only talk to Hunk a couple different times, and she said that it's really Bradley that she likes, even though she turned him into Hunk, and she wants to spend eternity together. But it doesn't make any sense.
Fucking movie.
At the same time that she's talking about this, and she's mentioning that she doesn't care where in hell they are together, as long as they're together, and that they'll traipse back and forth through time, because the devil makes a comment about how in the universe or in time, they're at an all-time low for demon powers. So because they're at an all-time low, I guess, in the 80s, the devil has to go back in time to make sure that the Titanic always sinks to make sure that Rome always falls, to make sure this volcano always goes off, to make sure that the Trojans are killed and blah 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 blah. But it doesn't make any sense. Why does he have to go back in time to keep things continually happening?
They're working so hard to define stakes in this movie where they have them already. Like the stakes are man can lose soul. Yes. That's all your stakes need to be. That is a universally recognizable thing. He's going to lose his soul if he goes through with this deal, but is the reward he gets enough? And that's it. That's all you need. But they're like bending over backwards to try to justify this, and they don't need to. Yes. And it's one of the reasons why this movie is an hour and 45 minutes when it does not need to be.
Well, it doesn't understand anything that it's talking about because it continually wants to have like I said, it wants to have the sex side with it. Mm-hmm. And at a party that Hunk ends up throwing, Skeet Mecklenburger's girlfriend decides that she's going to have a stern talking to with Hunk in his bedroom. But it turns out that she wants to have sex with him. But it's not so much that she wants to have sex with him as she really wants to play with his vibrating bed. Because to simulate that they might be having sex, she ends up pressing a whole bunch of buttons on the bed that causes it to vibrate. And the vibration's so strong that it's causing objects in the other room to shake all over the place. But there's no actual sex or intimating that sex is being had.
And then the scene ends.
and then it just ends.
And that's all there is there.
And we jump back and forth with the psychologist that he's talking to, whose name is Sonny. And Sonny continually is talking to him about morality, love, in the afterlife. While Hunk's trying to explain to her what he's going through, that he is in the deal with the devil and with O'Brien. And Sonny doesn't believe any of it, but she's jumping back to talking about these other topics. And she's going with him out into the world. Very much not things that psychologists are usually prone to do. Yeah. And it's just so awkward, but they're walking down a pier where they are. There's a camera team that's filming a variation of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and their variation of Robin Leach that they have was strangely enough played by the guy who was Bert Cooper on Mad Men.
Yep. And you know what his name is? Garrison Gaylord.
Garrison Gaylord.
They love alliteration. They can't stop doing it.
Garrison Gaylord, who can't act, who can't hold a drink properly, and decides that because he's so pissed off, he's going to go get in his car and drive off set. His driver is not there that day, and apparently he's so much of an idiot that he can't operate a Jeep and sends it into reverse. And just as it is about to kill Hunk and Sonny, Hunk is able to stop the Jeep dead in its tracks. And he says, "See, that's not normal. That's how you know that I'm different." And everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're a hero." And magically through the act, because they were able to get it on videotape of him stopping this Jeep, that makes him an international sensation.
He's a celebrity. Everyone loves him.
Well, he's not just a celebrity. Like, he transcends celebrity because he's not only just got people fawning over him, but he's getting calls from the senator. He's getting calls for fashion deals. He's getting calls for movie deals. He's getting calls about cereal. He's getting calls about lines of products that he's going to sell. And
Hunk Burger.
Yes, Hunk Burger, which he's all sold out of
till 1992, which I'm sure sounded like a long time in the future back.
And he's talking with Sonny, and he even mentions, I got to go back to UCLA. They've still got more tests to run.
Yeah, which doesn't go anywhere. So I guess
he doesn't. But directly at this point, which is the hour and 4 minute mark, the way Sunny was acting, of course, had already been weird for a bit, but it really hits ahead in the scene, just the way that she's talking to him, because it seems odd. Yes, she could be attracted to him, and it comes off with that. And I'm like, oh, well, she's clearly going to be an angel, and that's what it is. And she's working the other side. Or maybe it's just O'Brien being like, oh, I'm going to play both ends of it. And sure enough, less than a minute later, when Hunk walks out of the room, they're like, oh, Sunny happens to be O'Brien. And this is the other side that she's trying to do to make him think that the devil and O'Brien aren't really real and that he's just crazy. And then he'll end up staying in the body
or something
for the end of time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense, because if he doesn't believe that the devil exists or O'Brien exists, then he can't agree to the contract.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. This I wrote down, well, this took a turn, because it suddenly it's taking what is a very simple concept. I mean, they do this like, this is one of the most told stories in film. I mean, movies do it all the time, over and over again. And they just keep clouding it, just over and over again, adding new layers onto it for no reason. So,
yes.
So now O'Brien and Sunny are the same person. They both are in love with Hunk, because they're the same person. But they're still trying to convince him to do the contract, because O'Brien's contract is almost up. Hers ends at Labor Day also.
Day after Labor Day.
I'm sorry. Her ends on Tuesday after Labor Day, probably around 2:30 or something. And then, so that's her motivation, even though she's falling in love with him. And it's just like, it's too much. But
it's happened before. That's what they revealed. The whole reason that she has to land Hunk and get him to agree to sell his soul is because it's been 99 years and she hasn't had a soul that she's gotten since was it 1887?
Yeah.
And who was it?
I don't remember. I didn't write it down.
It's Von something. Yeah. It's because it's a famous name. They're trying to make a terrible joke, and it's stupid. But you find out that Sunny's tried to bring people over in the past, and she ends up falling in love with them,
which immediately takes away the specialness of Bradley Brinkman. Now it's just O'Brien just falls in love with everybody.
She's continually falling in love with their humanity, is what they say, and so she's had people in the past who decide that they do not want to sell their souls because of the feelings that they have. But they're not really saying if what she's doing this time it differentiates at all, because he's still berating her. Mm-hmm. But again, the devil makes the comment that he's got great plans for Hunk and that he needs him, and he knows that it's exactly what he needs to start World War III. But they don't mention like what the reason is. Again, like, 'cause it'd be fine if it was just something that they mentioned once in the movie and you think that maybe he's joking around, but he doubles down on it here, and he really wants Sunny to get this done because he's convinced, that not Bradley, but Hunk is what he needs to start World War III. And I guess to hit it over the head more, Hunk ends up having a nightmare. I'm not really sure because we're not led to know if he's awake or asleep. He's basically awake, I guess. That Bradley ends up escaping from hell to come tell Hunk, hey, this is really real. This is really the devil. You got to get out of this. I'm the person inside you, even though my body is trapped in hell, but my body houses me, who's also you.
Again, they're trying to And we don't know if this is just a dream he's having because of guilt, or if this is something that's actually happening. And the movie,
no, it's actually happening, because the devil mentions that he was that he was swimming food to Cuba for Fidel during the Bay of Pigs, and that while that was happening, that's when Bradley escaped hell, so that he could warn Hunk.
But only in Hunk's dreams.
I don't know, but because it may have been a real thing. But the next morning, Sonny gets up and goes outside to take a shower when the devil shows up, and Sonny transforms into O'Brien, steps into the shower, and has a conversation about sealing the deal with Hunk while the devil gives her a sponge bath shower.
Such a weird fucking movie. Like,
it's literally one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in any movie, because they're having this straight conversation. She walks over, completely disrobes. Again, because it's PG, you're not seeing anything. And he just grabs a sponge and starts soaping her body while he's having a conversation, while he's cool dressed in an entire wetsuit. It doesn't make any sense. It's just so uncomfortable.
But I think this is Labor Day morning, right? Like,
this is Labor Day morning, because that evening they're going to go to the party where Hunk's going to get the key to the city, and he's presented it by Coaster Royce, who cites Hunk as one of his best friends.
And Skeet Mecklenburger is the mayor, they say, is like not the official mayor, but the honorary mayor of the city.
Yeah, he's like the interim mayor. Maybe the mayor died somehow, but we're not really sure. But would have been a much more interesting story. But he's got the key to the city that looks like it's made of wood.
It does. It looks really shitty.
And he goes to give it to Hunk, and hits Hunk in the head with it, which knocks him out. This is the body that they've mentioned is able to eat a ton so he doesn't gain any weight, can drink so much so that he never gets drunk, is a natural martial artist so that he can protect his body, but he gets hit in the head in the slightest tap and he's out cold.
So much for all that.
It's horrible. And then just to continue on the insane and fucking pedantic routes, he ends up dreaming that it's World War III has been started by him. And because the movie has absolutely no money whatsoever, his dream takes place on the beach where they've held every other scene in the movie. And it's so bad. I know we keep on making terrible analogies and comparisons to the film, but this looks like if somebody had seen the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan and had absolutely no money to recreate it.
Yeah. Well, and then he's got an assault rifle, and instead of like firing it at anyone, he just holds it up and makes gun shooting noises.
Pow 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 pow. Pow 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 pow.
And then he sees all his old quote unquote friends around their Trivial Pursuit table. But now the board has a hole in it. Do you think Trivial Pursuit like sponsored part of this movie? Because I'm pretty sure they did.
Did Red Solo Cup? Because they made sure to show the like 5 disintegrated Red Solo Cups.
But this dream, I guess, is enough to convince him that he can't go through with the deal.
Which doesn't make sense, because the dream ends with Bradley Brinkman tied to a post out in the water telling Hunk, this isn't you. I know this isn't you. You still have a chance. You can turn back. You don't have to make this choice. And the devil's goading him on, and Hunk decides, I'm going to shoot Bradley. And that's what wakes him up. And he goes, alive. What? And sees that, there's still time. He can still change his mind.
So there's fundamental problems here. So yes. First of all, clearly through the O'Brien character, just because you sell your soul to the devil and the devil forces you to work for them does not mean you are required to do the things that the devil wants you to do. O'Brien clearly has not been listening to him for 99 years, so he could just be Hunk and not bring about World War III?
Probably, but I mean that's not the decision. Because he has a speech with the devil and tells him, hey, I don't want to do it. I want to go back to being Bradley. Makes a big show about it. Ends up saying, to O'Brien that they can still find a way to be together. That she can say no to the devil too, and they can be together because he senses something good inside her, just like she sensed something good inside him. And then the movie decides to say, okay, that's fine. O'Brien, you're going to be freed and you can live in your mortal self for the rest of your life. In which they end up showing who she really is, and she's a disgraced princess from the 16th century, they say?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah. And she's not a true princess because her father ended up selling her off for marriage. And the devil cites that she was very lonely and sad. And the only reason that she was lonely and sad wasn't because she was sold off into marriage, but because of the fact that her younger sister was prettier than she was.
Which it makes sense, because what this is trying to do is trying to tie us back to our whole message of the film, which is that beauty is on the inside, and it's what's inside that counts, which is kind of...
Well, the movie even says, don't be afraid to be the person you are on the inside. Well, in O'Brien's case, on the inside, she's actually Sunny.
Yeah, she's a beautiful blonde woman.
Exactly, because the woman who played Sunny is the woman they showed to be the princess. So O'Brien's deciding to take the human form of the psychologist. She's actually taking on how she actually looks in real life.
And that's really where this just completely fumbles the landing. Is if they had made the true form of Sunny / O'Brien someone that was more plain looking, or more in line, or more stereotypical of that Bradley Brinkman nerdiness, then that would have completed the circle. But they don't.
In any other movie where this is a twist, it ends up being Chachka.
Yeah, right? Like that. Exactly. That's kind of what I thought they were going to do.
Yeah, exactly. And Chachka even disappears for part of the movie, and you think
she's
that's
gone.
Yeah, Chachka just disappears. So you think that Sunny's going to possibly end, like before they show O'Brien, you think, oh, Chachka's going to end up being Sunny, and this is her side of the thing, that she got the same deal, and then they end up realizing that they like each other. But no, that's not what happens. He ends up not having to sell his soul, and he ends up getting a princess, and he ends up, because of that, remembering, oh, hey, that's right, I really need to write that computer program. So he decides that he's going to write what he calls the Princess Program, how to live royally on a regular week's pay.
That's not a computer program. That's a self-help book. What is going on?
Exactly.
But here's like, so there's a couple problems I want to try to broach here. And it's funny that
there's so many questions but no answers from the movie. So
one of them is central. You can call it a plot hole. So O'Brien sold her soul to the devil. She took the deal that Bradley Brinkman did not. She became an employee of the devil for 600 years, let's say. Then she just stopped doing her job. And her punishment for stopping doing her job is to get her soul back. So...
Well, no,
that doesn't make any sense.
She gets her form back.
So she's still, at the end of her life, just going to burn in hell for all eternity? That's her happy ending?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's
which is... She decides is enough for her because she gets to live out, because that's what he says, is that she's going to live out the rest of her mortal life, basically. And so that's enough for Bradley to be like, sure, I'm up for that. I get a princess who looks exactly like the chick that I was already banging.
Yeah. And okay, so I guess that makes sense. Here's the other part of the issue I have with this. If the central message of this movie is that beauty is on the inside and we shouldn't just like people from the outside, then Hunk Goldman needs to be more of a jerk, because they don't make him a bad person. Like there's hints of it.
They don't make him. Yeah, they don't make him continually a bad person. There's the point where he starts to go crazy, which was my slight favorite part, where he's on the phone, he's yelling at a whole bunch of different people who are wanting him to do too much, and he's freaking out about it. And this girl throws up a grappling hook onto the side of the cliff so that she can come up and get an autograph, and he gives her the autograph, and they make him seem like, he's going to be sexist, but then he ends up taking a hatchet and chopping the top of the grappling hooks, sending her plummeting to the ground, probably breaking her leg if not dying.
But then he uses the hatchet to chop phone lines off.
Because he's sick of the phone calls he's getting. Well, guess what? You chopped the wrong end, and it's still going to ring. Yeah. You just have no way to stop it from ringing until the answering machine picks up, or you unplug it the correct way.
Then he gets mad at all his fans and just sprays them with water from a hose. And then they all hate him.
I know, it comes out of nowhere, and they again make it seem like it's going a completely different route, because he's talking to Sonny and he goes, I don't really like how I feel. I feel different. I feel that there's an anger inside me that wasn't there before. And that's when I thought, oh, it's the demon. This is when he's getting possessed. This is when, she's going to end up feeling bad and be like, oh, I got to call, an exorcism to get this out of him. And that's how they were going to save the day. But nope. Movie doesn't care about that. Well, just here's a simple question that we're not asking. If when he decides to revert, right, and he decides that he's going to be Bradley, is the house and car a Cinderella type situation, where the next day when he's walking down the beach and everything, the house is turned back to shit. And it's no longer posh, and he's no longer got his Ferrari. He's got his beat up VW Bug again.
I would hope so, but maybe the devil doesn't seem particularly smart with all this stuff, so he might have just forgotten to take all that stuff away.
We never read the contract, so we don't know.
But like there's this story's done so many times, and like all you have to do is look to the Nutty Professor. For an example of how to do this right, like, and I'm talking about the Eddie Murphy one, but like Buddy Love in that movie is an asshole, and so then it becomes, beauty's on the inside. Sherman is fat and not good looking, but he's a good person. Buddy is perfect looking, but is a dick, and they don't want to commit to that in this movie. They just want to be very surface level, or they want to play it as jokes, and it just completely collapses everything they're trying to do, which is like this isn't a good movie, and it's not a good movie for a lot of reasons, but it is trying, and that's better than I can say for some of the other movies we've talked about on here. That this movie is trying to do something, it just fails.
Well, it's trying because it doesn't know the basics of what it wants to get across. Because the main issue, and I have it written in my notes just in giant block letters a whole bunch of different times, is chaste. The movie's PG. It wants to be a sex comedy, but it pulls back in way too many instances. When it should be going for scatological humor, it's trying to have what in other movies would be weighty discussions that here are weightless because there's nothing to tether them down. And so you have to choose which side you're going to be on. You can't toe that middle line and be like, hey, we're not showing nudity. We're not having any coarse language. Um, but we still want to have this type of fun. That doesn't work. I mean, the closest that we get to cursing is your favorite line in the movie.
Which one?
The insult.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I wrote it down. Where is it? Oh, here we go. I'm gonna wrap your nuts around your neck, Twinkie dick. This is my favorite line ever.
That's the harshest line in the entire movie.
And that's Mecklenburger, right? It's during the volleyball match.
It's a good old Skeet Mecklenburger, but it has no bearing on it. I mean, the closest to most offensive scene you have in the movie is when you see Hunk's pubic hair for no reason when he's checking out his dick. But that's it. Yeah. Like that's as far as they go in the movie. And I think it was a situation where they didn't mean to shoot that much, and we're just like, we literally have no time. We got to keep it going. Because they're in a scene, or they're in a hurry just to get from scene to scene. They're jumping from place to place with great expediency. And like you said, they do have a montage when he's Hunk early on, showing him enjoying the life. And then he goes and he talks to Sonny, and he's like, I'm not sure about all this. All this stuff seems crazy. I'm really worried about, what's going on with the devil. And Sonny's like, no, you should enjoy it. You've got these wiles and you've got these desires, and you look how you do. You should play up into that Hunk lifestyle. And then we get a montage of him, courting women everywhere. And when I say courting women, it's more so he's on the dance floor at the Sea Shack, Crab Shack,
whatever it is.
They probably all have crabs there, so it makes sense.
Zing.
But he's dancing with a woman for 5 seconds. Another woman walks over and is dancing with him, and then another woman is dancing with him. And then the next day he answers the door when Sonny comes over, and he's got two Swedish sister twin stewardesses who are leaving. That's it.
Yeah.
You didn't see him pick him up or anything like that. They're just leaving, and he kisses them sweetly on the lips.
God, this movie's so weird. I don't know. Are we at the end? Is the time?
Yeah, no, I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to mention. The history of this movie, I know you know a little bit about. My favorite thing about this film is that was it Crown International, the studio that put out the films? Mm-hmm. They were kind of on their last legs when they were making this movie, and they needed this to be they needed this to be a big hit. They filed for bankruptcy and closed down after this movie came out.
I think this movie pulled in $1,749,000 at the box office, though. Gross, obviously, but
yeah. And what was the budget?
I have no idea. I don't think we have that information. Do we?
No, I don't have it. But the budget, I can guarantee you, was probably like 2 to 3 times that.
No way. No way.
If it brought in $1 million, I'm pretty sure something like this would cost between like $2 to $3 million to make.
What would they spend it on? Not the actors.
Not the actors, but the location, the vehicles, because they are on beachfront property for most of it. And even if there was just one big house that they've got for most of the time, they're on the beach a lot. There were lots of extras that they had to take care of, even if it was the same 20 extras. I guarantee you, for the time this movie was made, it probably cost between like $2 to $3 million.
God, it seems like a lot. I don't know. Maybe.
It does seem like a lot, but I mean, we're talking about, a major motion picture. And if the studio thought that this film was what was going to put them over the edge, then yeah, they'd be willing to spend a little bit more. But I mean, the reason they came up with this movie, I know the history of that.
Yeah, so the studio went to this director who had directed one other movie for them that I'm blanking on the name now. What was it called again? What was the name of that movie that he did?
Not. I almost said Out to Sea, but that wasn't it.
Oh, it's Weekend Pass is the name of the movie.
Yes.
So
which is about guys who join the Navy, and directly after they get out of basic training, they end up going to a whole bunch of bars, and the tagline for it is that they're going to forget everything the Navy ever taught them, even though they only have basic training.
Yeah, it apparently wasn't a very good movie. It didn't make them very much money, but for whatever reason, they let this director do another movie, and they let him write it too. So they basically came to him and said, "We want to make a movie called Hunk. We don't have a script for you. We have no plot ideas. We just want the title to be Hunk. Just make a comedy and call it Hunk." And so the director, Lawrence Bassoff, I think it was his name, put this film together, and then never worked again. So he's never he made 2 films. He's a USC film school graduate, which is, I mean, one of the top 4 film schools in the country. And then never worked in the industry again. I don't
blame him.
No.
At all.
It clearly shows that some stuff cannot be taught.
Yes, that's very true. This movie also supposedly, I didn't see it in the film, but there's places online that say that this is Brad Pitt's debut, and that he's supposed to be in one of the beach scenes wearing a blue and white striped shirt.
Yeah, I missed it. I did see that, but I did not see.
I have no desire to go back and watch it to see if that's true at all. But yes, it's a terrible film. I mean, it's a pain to discuss just because of how unfortunate it is. There are parts where it seems like they have an idea of what they want to do. They just don't have any of the skills or ability to execute. And
here's like, this is, and I'm about to drop some serious knowledge on the podcast here. I'm an expert now over our 6-7 episodes. I think when you have a bad movie that's like a drama or a horror movie or something, when it's bad, it's more fun because it can be unintentionally funny. But when you have a movie like this that's a comedy that's bad, like, it's just not, like, it's just, there's nothing redeemable to it. Like, it's even kind of hard to talk about it because there's just nothing funny about this movie. Like, there's nothing funny metatextually or within the jokes of the film itself.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. It's worthless. For a period of time, the only way that you could get this movie was through Lionsgate, like Warner Brothers and a couple other handful of movie studios out there had their giant vault program. For those people who don't know, the majority of major movie studios out there have vaults and vaults and vaults of films that you're never ever going to see. Movies that came out in the theaters but didn't make it to VHS, haven't made it to DVD, haven't made it to Blu-ray, that only exist in like very, very faint memories of people's minds. Some of these studios nowadays have a program where you can go online, look through their catalog, and they'll have selected movies that you can buy a DVD of. They'll only make the DVD for when somebody places an order. Lots of those movies have made it onto various streaming sites. Hulu has a big practice of getting some of these movies. Netflix, I know, has started to dip in to get some of the older movies that are in these vaults that did have some type of life on TV for years. And clearly Vudu's getting into that as well, because that's where Hunk comes from. Hunk very much deserved to not be a film that was released in any possible way. So it's sad in that regard that it came back. But that's going to bring us to the vote. I think we know where we're going to fall, but still, for formalities, as always, we have to stick to this. So Scott, how do you vote?
Watch this, Adrian. Not guilty. Look, this is not a good movie, but I think it is interesting enough in how it is not a good movie that I think it is worth watching. I think this is a recipe in how to take a formula that is very transparent and works very well. Works so well, in fact, that it's been repeated again and again and again and again, and how to screw it up. And I think from that perspective, I think this is worth seeing. And I think there are movies like Panda Warrior, which are just awful and don't work on an 8 level. I think this movie gets very, very, very close to working and just doesn't quite stick the landing. So that's my vote.
Okay, I have to disagree. I have to say guilty because incompetence runs through this film. And it's really easy and nice to say, oh, but they get so close. If this movie looks like it wasn't made with any money whatsoever, I could maybe feel that. You know, if we're talking about a D, E, F, Z grade film, you could understand that because clearly amateurs would be making that film and they wouldn't have had a studio, even as small as this one was. They wouldn't have had that studio. They would have been doing it on a shoestring budget. And you can forgive people when they're making those smaller films that are made outside of the system because they're just trying to put something out there. It's a labor of love. This doesn't feel like that. This had money behind it. They were trying to put out a film that they thought was going to make money, and it's still incompetently made. So I can't really forgive that. What I will do, I will make a slight caveat, and I'll say that I will vote not guilty to John Allen Nelson, who plays Hunk Golden, because he is the one who's trying. He's the one who's selling the scenes as best he can. And while, again, he does fail, it's not necessarily his fault. It's the film that's being made that's drawing him back. It's the material that he has to work with that he can't make it pliable in the way that he needs to. And there's a good reason why he's the person who's been working the most out of everybody in the film. And he's still working to this day. I haven't seen it because I'm not up to date on the show right now, but he's been in 3 episodes of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend for the 2nd season. And for anybody who's seen a little bit of that show, or even just the first season, like I have, that show's very, very careful in their casting. They make sure that even if there's one person who has 3 lines in an episode, that they've casted the heck out of that part. So for him to be on that show in multiple episodes, that there's a reason why they chose him. So I'm willing to say not guilty to him.
Well, so I predicted a split here.
Yes.
So I actually asked Matt, who couldn't be here today.
Oh, that's horrible.
But he did watch the film. So I asked him just in case there was a split, and he said he would have voted guilty. So
good. Because I was going to override. I was going to say, I was going to say, worst comes to worst, I'm the host. So I would do it, and that's why I tried to be nice and give the caveat. So, but because of Matt, who is calling in a vote, kind of like the devil himself, I guess, we are going to send Hunk into the deep, deep recesses of space, into the Phantom Zone. But John Allen Nelson, you're safe.
Keep working in TV, man. Keep doing it. Exactly. You're awesome.
Stay in your lane. In your lane. Do that. Work with material that makes sense. Because this is just shit.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, at the end of the day, to me, it's harmless shit. Like, it's not like we've watched so many like aggressively bad movies, and this just felt like Just it's trying, but it's just not good. It's just.
But that's okay. But I guess maybe that's what's imbued me so long to have the fortitude that I have with these movies. Is it doesn't matter how many movies I see like this or far worse, I'm not any lenient on them, comparatively. I don't say, oh, this movie's not as terrible as that one. I'm still just like, no, it's still shit. I'm still going to be honest, and I'm not going to be nicer to it because it's not as worse as other shit that I've seen. It's still shit.
You're so cold-hearted, Adrian.
No, I'm just being honest. If we to quote a bad movie, which I like parts of, Hero with Dustin Hoffman, he's got the part where he says that life is bullshit. It's just layers and layers of bullshit. And you choose your bullshit, and that's your bullshit for the rest of your life.
I practice...
And that's how I feel with these movies, is that you choose a type of bad movie that you can enjoy, but you still have to be willing to say that it's bullshit.
I practice bullshit relativism, which means I see layers of bullshit, and this is bullshit that I'm okay with.
I really hope that you're able to work that into your vows, Scott.
I don't think my fiance would be okay with that.
Yes, well, that's how marriages work, basically.
Oh, Hunk.
All right, we suffered through this.
Bye, Hunk.
I suffered through another movie, which we'll do at a later date.
Absolutely, can't wait.
That one's terrible. So just to give future warning to people, you can watch this one. We'll let you know about. We don't know when we're going to record it, but this way you know in advance. Also through Vudu on their Watch Free on Us, they have Rodney Dangerfield's film from 2000, My Five Wives.
Adrian, I don't like Rodney Dangerfield, so I don't think I'm going to like this movie. I haven't seen it yet, but
do you like any of early Dangerfield, or?
I mean, I can take him in very, very small doses.
Okay, well, let's too quickly, and then we'll finish up. But I'll mention a couple of them. And you tell me kind of where you fall on them. Back to School.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I don't remember loving it, but I don't remember hating it either.
Okay. Caddyshack.
I mean, everyone loves Caddyshack.
But still, it proves a point. Meet Wally Sparks.
Never saw it.
Okay. So I mean, those are usually the main ones that are on there. Easy Money.
I don't think I saw that either.
Okay.
But see, I think Caddyshack works because I think while he is one of the primary characters, he is not the primary character. And when the entire movie is hinging on him and his performance alone, I don't think his shtick can hold up to that for the entire.
That's what it is.
No,
that's actually exactly what the switch is. When you look at his career, you've got the majority of his big hits that he made were at like the beginning of his film career. Mm-hmm. And those films had less involvement with him. They had his bits in it, but he didn't have full control. When you get to like the mid 90s and then later when he had the spat of really bad movies, he was directly involved with them. When you go from like Ladybugs, Meet Wally Sparks, My Five Wives, and a whole bunch of films that were in there in between, he was actually writing the screenplays for them. When you go back to like Easy Money and Caddyshack and Back to School, he wasn't involved in the scripting process. So you had that barrier between it. And mm-hmm. and that's the thing. It's one of those, when you have the unhinged id running all over the place. Yeah. That's what it is. But that's what's interesting about Rodney Dangerfield is that when he was at his peak popularity, at least in the film world, he had little control over his character in the movie itself, and it just goes to prove when you give somebody too much power, they can corrupt their own work.
Absolutely. But we will tackle that movie in the future.
Yeah, because we have to get to Heartbeats. That's going to be the next one we're going to do. We won't do it next week because you're going to be on your honeymoon. So we'll say in 2 weeks we're going to do Heartbeats. That'll still keep us kind of bi-monthly, for now.
We'll keep a schedule. This is just a weird week for me because, marriage.
Yes. Well, I would like to say congratulations.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I hope you have the happiest of honeymoons.
Well, it's going to be a mini moon because my 4 days from now wife is a teacher, so she cannot take off 2 weeks or anything like that. So we're going to Seattle for like a couple days just because neither of us have been there. I'm just going to hang out up there for a couple days, and then we'll be back. So, we might fit in a recording near the end of the week, but it probably wouldn't drop until the week after anyway. So that's fine.
Well, all I have to say is I really hope that you watch some terrible movie on the flight.
I'm sure I will.
And with that, we will see you guys next time.